And okay. All right, I think we're good now. Technical difficulties as always. This has been fun already. Let's go. Thank you guys again supporting everybody and everyone supporting us. It's been a crazy ride. We've been going literally almost 2 years now. So it's been really wild and fun and had a lot of great guests. And I am super excited tonight to have our guest Katie on because it has been such a journey. And we're in this mini series now about alternative medicine and getting healthy and fit and doing better in our lives and doing better things. And I can go through your whole bio, Kate, but you know what? The best person to say is you. So, yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
Throw you to the flame.
Hello, everyone. I'm Katie Chapman. I'm a registered dietitian in California. And let's see, a little about me. So I've been a dietitian for 14 years, and I focus in kind of 3 specific subsets: bariatric nutrition, gut health or GI issues, and then hormonal health. And so about kind of utilizing your food as medicine or your food as making sure that your nutritional needs are met, and really focusing. I focus on a whole person approach. So I tend to not just be like, okay, here's what you're going to eat and the only things, and this is all it is. Typically when you're talking about health and wellness and even nutrition, you have to take in all the other things and what you're supporting and how your body is working. So that's a little about me and my approach. And I'm sure there's more things we'll discover as we talk tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I when you sent me your bio, I was like, wow, and we had chatted offline a few times, and let's just go over. And I know you're a very humble person. Let's go over some of the awards you've won too. I mean, that's no feat. That's not a small thing.
So I was I have to think of the years, 2010 Young Dietitian of the Year for the state of California, and the 2018, I think, Excellence in Practice Award for the American or the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So that's all of the U.S. I won an Excellence in Practice,
the big one
award.
It's so amazing.
So, so couple awards I got going on.
Just a little bit, just little stuff, No, that's so amazing. And it's so good to have somebody like your credentials speaking about this stuff because, you can have anybody, we call it the PNN, the private news network. Everyone says, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, to lose weight, do this. And it just goes all crazy. You want to live healthier, take this, take that. And sometimes that's not the way it is. So to have somebody that we can really trust, have somebody that actually knows what they're speaking about coming on is a huge thing. Unfortunately, still, we don't have the Facebook working. There's some kind of weird technical issue going on with that. But it's okay. We're just going to keep trucking on. This is how we do it because triggered is triggered, and that's how we get people. So if you're hearing now, if you're watching or listening to the video now or the Anchor, Spotify, iHeart, any place you're listening, sorry for the late relay and reactions. It is just a Facebook technical thing. But it's okay. Throw down comments if you want. We will go back through and comment later and answer your questions, anything you need to know. So again, I'm looking at my little script here just to see who, what, where, and all that good stuff. You said you're out of California. And anyone who knows California, we have a lot of listeners from Cali. A good friend of mine, I won't put his name out there, but he's from Cali up in Auburn in Northern Cal. And there's this huge thing. I don't know if it's just a Cali thing or if it's, it's like where you're from, NorCal, SoCal, NorCal. It's like this huge,
Yeah.
So where do you fall on that?
So I'm in Southern California, and I've been here for 18 years. I'm originally from Kentucky. You will not hear the accent unless I'm really fired up. So you may hear the accent tonight, depending on
what we're talking about.
Yeah. So
Awesome, Kentucky. I actually have a good friend who is still there at the 101st Airborne, and she absolutely loves it there. She says the weather's kind of weird, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's wild. So Kentucky, good stuff. But
Yeah.
from SoCal last 18
Okay.
years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm sure we'll get a few comments on that later on. So what made you go into this career? Like what made you say, okay, I want to go to college and do this career? Like was there some kind of huge traumatic event, or was it like, what was it that made you decide to go for your career in your industry?
Oh my gosh, great question. So my undergraduate degree is actually in public speaking, and I
Perfect.
did perfect. I did that. I kind of did consulting and training for a while, and post undergrad, I started running marathons just
Mm,
to honestly for like mental health, like just to have a really nice routine and get my body moving. And that's what I fell into.
yeah.
But over time, I noticed the connection between nutrition and like how I ate and how I felt while running and after running. And it was just this really big component of it that piqued my interest. So I, in going to grad school, was like, hey, let me just switch careers and then go and get a master's in nutritional science, become a dietitian, and then here I am. So
Awesome.
that's kind of the back.
Yeah, it's crazy you say it because like when you are doing physical activity, as in
Mhm,
marathons, I know a lot of us that were in the military, you're doing these runnings and weightlifting and all this
mhm.
activity. What you feed yourself, even the night before, 2 nights before, or what you drink really plays a major factor in how
Yeah.
you perform the very next day and the next few days. And if you're, I know with me, I wasn't like the running type, but we still had to run.
Yeah.
But I
Sure.
knew, yeah, like if I had cranberry juice, just the amount of sugar in that compared to maybe apple juice or some kind of other thing, or chocolate milk compared to white milk compared
Uh-huh.
to, there's such a huge difference when you're in tune with your body that much. It's an amazing feeling
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
staying
Absolutely.
hydrated, and it's crazy because just the small stuff like that of,
Mhm,
most people don't think about it because they're not on that end, like that high performance, but it really does
mhm.
take a huge factor, even from a day to day. I know myself,
Yeah.
I am horrible at drinking the energy drinks. I drink Monster, probably two of them a day, and I'm working on it. I know it's so cringeworthy, but I think that also came from like doing the military of having, back then it was the Rippets and the Bangs that had,
Right.
600 milligrams of caffeine, which was like instant heart attack.
Yeah.
So used to that, and then coming out of it, but every little thing like drinking water throughout the day is a huge factor. I mean, it really helps. Whether it's bottled or tap, obviously, depending on where you live and if you have a well system and all that stuff. But like staying hydrated is really key. And your body will literally tell you what it needs and what it doesn't need. And it's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I mean, you're exactly right. The day-to-day aspects, like I I can even notice it within myself and then also with the people that I
mhm.
work with, like sleep will be disrupted because of how someone ate or how late they ate or if their
Yes.
nutrients are balanced. And like if someone wakes up between 2 and 4 a.m., I'm almost like, oh, their blood sugars are a little off. That's like, and literally it is like 2 to 4 a.m. And
Yep.
it's so interesting to see like just how our bodies amazingly work, but are really, really noticing and recognizing of just what goes in it and how that's
Yeah.
supporting our systems, supporting our organs. I mean, all of it, right? Could go on for days, but
And you know what's amazing? Literally, it's funny you say that because I remember in my EMS days, most people know, but I did EMS for almost 10 years. I'm still a responder. I don't have my EMT card. I let all that go because it was just chaos and craziness.
uh,
So I did that for 10 years, and it always seemed like the older people with diabetes or some kind of diabetic issue was always in between, that 1 to 4 p.m. or 1 to 4 a.m.
mhm,
period where they had their super crashes of hypoglycemia where,
mhm.
and it was like people would say, oh, they've never acted like that before, and their blood sugar would be like 30, And it's just crazy how literally just what you said, right in those time frames were some of the worst hypoglycemic or hypoglycemic periods. It was wild to see that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, ideally it's that when someone goes to sleep, we want our bodies doing the most work basically when you're awake, right?
Right.
So we're trying to make sure that everything is matched up nutritionally for what is going on here. And so if that is off or shifted, or lots of other reasons, to be honest, but what happens is that your body will go into go into sleep and start going into REM sleep. But as that sleep cycle starts to change, it also has to indicate to our body, like, now is also the time where you can kind of catch up on work. If we think about just think about your life of oh yeah, okay, I need this time, let me catch up on work. So our body does that, and it's these very specific time frames. And so if someone is having difficulty, even I'll say, even with someone without diabetes or without a diagnosis in that way, we all have blood sugars that work. That's how we digest food. That's how our body systems utilize sugar coming from food, and everything will get turned into points of sugar. But so with anyone, if I'm always if I notice that time frame and sleep disruption, and that's such a huge deal with health, you need quality sleep. So if someone's yeah, my quality sleep is not quality sleep, then there's some clues that can just help to indicate to us what can we do, because it's nice to feel empowered, you can take some action with things too, instead of just being well, I guess I could take a sleep medication and okay, but let's lift the hood a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing too. Let's dive into that a little bit. Sleep is such an important factor of healing the body and of being on point with your body, because I know myself, again, while I was in the military and doing the fire and EMS, you're on sometimes 24, 48 hours and you're not sleeping because literally you can't, or some kind of disruption, or your body's so used to only sleeping 4 or 5 hours a day, maybe. Sleep is such a huge important part. And like you said, when you're sleeping, your body is catching up on all that extra work, in the sense of just what you said, it's that catch up time. And it's sometimes your body's trying to catch up. And if you don't have enough sleep, the rest of your day is not going to work. And sleep is such a huge important thing. I know for myself, I was taking a lot of meds when I first got out of the Army. I was on over 45 meds, and that really disrupted not even my sleep, because I was taking meds for sleep, but there was so many other meds that were contraindicating all the other meds. And once I was able to clean my system out, so to speak, and actually get actual sleep, now once I'm asleep, I'm out. And I can sleep for 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever my body tells me is sleep. And I feel so much better and energized throughout the day. And it's just so much better. Good quality sleep is so key. And again, like you said, the times you're eating at night, what you're eating at night, if it's more of a sugary thing compared to a protein, compared to all that really plays into effect of how you're going to sleep that night. And so important. And people forget about that they say 6 to 8 hours for whatever it is. Sleep is so important, and that's a huge part of healing your body as well.
It is. It's like the reboot button. I mean, it's just if you think of our bodies are so incredible. They will adapt to anything. Right? They will be all right, move this, put a Band-Aid over here, no problem. They will do all the things. Okay. They will Tetris it all out. But I really but we also have to realize that they're a system. If we overwork them, they are going to be boop, shut down. I gotta reboot. No go.
It's wild, because literally, our bodies, I'll say for layman's terms, because like we said before, I geek out about this. I love the medical field, and just one system, let's just say it's your circulatory system, starts going a little haywire. everything else goes crazy, and vice versa. And it'll quickly shut down quick, but it's so amazing to see how quick they can adapt to outstanding performances as well, and how quick they can adapt to make things better. But if you keep sending them out of whack, they just shut down, and that's where a lot of people, they start getting kind of sluggish. They get depressed. Again, we'll go through that triad, that physical, mental, spiritual health all needs to be placed into one, because if it's not, it all goes out of whack, and that's when issues come up and start rising.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wild.
And the nice thing is like, there's, you can always see something about it. Like, and even like, if I switch back to food and kind of honestly what I do and why I came into this, like, you can absolutely do things about it, and it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, everything needs to happen. It all needs to be perfect.
Right.
Like, there are some like switches, like, oh gosh, okay, hey, I don't want you to eat within 3 hours before going to bed. So we can have that like digestion happening. So like your sleep is for sleep. That is one, like, if everything else is crazy, let's just do that. Like,
huge.
There's right. And that can make a huge difference. So I think even approaching some of these things, because there's information overload everywhere.
There is.
Don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You don't
Stay
have
off
to do all the
WebMD.
things.
Yeah.
Right. And then like, yeah, like just right. Like get someone to help direct your attention. Like, that sometimes is like the key to making all of these things start to really click together.
Yeah. And I think we can touch on too is like your body dealing with nutrition, and I hate using the word diet because everyone thinks of it as like, oh, I have to be restricted, and that's not true.
Right. Diet is just how you eat.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
They're building blocks to where you need to be in life and what you need to do. For instance, when I was in the Army, I was, super active, running all the time because that's what my unit did. They love running. And when I blew my knee out, I had to start changing my diet because I knew I wasn't running. So those huge muscular, 6-pack abs or whatever starts turning to flab because I'm still eating the same way, but I'm not exercising the same way. So I had to adjust my diet to meet what my weight requirements needed to be. And although I was weightlifting a lot more because I couldn't run, all of a sudden I was packing on the pounds because, as we know, muscle weighs more than fat. But all those building blocks were just like my chest gained like 3 inches. Like they were working on my neck, which is actually kind of a funny thing. In the Army, they had this. I don't know if it's the same. I gotta recheck it because they've changed their physical testing like 4 or 5 times already over the past year. It's been crazy. So they said if you build up your neck size, you're still within the ratio. Well, now I gotta get tested for sleep apnea because my neck is too big.
Yeah.
So it's this huge. It's that turnaround time. It's wild how one thing affects the other. But yeah, you have to adjust your diet to what your body needs for that performance or that job.
Absolutely.
And now it's for myself. I should say I eat what I want, but at the same time, I do. But I have the knowledge and the understanding that, and later on, we're going to have a guest. And next week, actually, next Tuesday, my good friend Luca Brasi, he's a personal trainer. And one of the things he pushed on me, which was amazing, was look at food as an energy source, not as actual food. When you do that, your mindset changes. So instead of having a pound and a half of pasta to eat at night because you want a carb overload, maybe take pasta, but put more protein in it. And what kind of protein? Is it a pork protein? Is it beef? Because all that plays into effect. So
all of that makes a difference. It really does.
It is. It's wild.
Just think, I would never have someone think of like you're hitting your nutrition as like what your needs are. So like I wouldn't serve a baby the same as an adult. I wouldn't have someone who is climbing a mountain the same as someone who has an energy and has limited mobility. And
Absolutely.
so, because you're also very specific of like, well, what are you doing? Like, if there's an injury, like I might be adding in extra things like zinc and vitamin C, like to help maybe a wound heal. Like, and I'm thinking about that through food. Or
Yeah.
if someone's like digestive health is really off, like I might be approaching that different because they're not really able to break down that food properly versus someone else.
Yeah.
So it all is like this, I'm probably the most annoying person in the world because people will be like, well, what's the best in my like insert whatever? What's the best diet? What's the best food? And I'm all like, it
It's
depends.
all situational.
It depends. Like it
Yeah.
really like I am always approaching the individual. So my
Yes.
answer is really going to be based upon that.
Well, that's so huge. I mean, and we can talk about that. Like, if you have somebody who, let's say, doesn't have a gallbladder, you're gonna intake
Mhm.
food and process food differently. Or
Absolutely.
someone who might have a thyroid issue, or who might not have a thyroid, the
Yeah.
way they're going to produce the iodine and things like that is going to be totally different than if someone who does.
Hmm.
And it's an individual thing. I kind of look at our bodies and each person as kind of a car or vehicle, truck, Jeep, whatever you want.
Absolutely.
Vehicle is different, so you can't put in 93 fuel in one vehicle and diesel in another, because they're going to run differently, or they may not run at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you
Absolutely.
hit, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head with that. As you think about your mountain climber or a triathlon
Yeah.
who is burning 6,000 calories a day, who needs to put in 7 or 8,000 to maintain and perform. But if you put 8,000 into me, I'm gonna plop up like a big old McDonald's Happy Meal. It's not going to end up well.
Yeah.
So
And you're
it's,
going to be really tired too, because
oh
that's
yeah,
going to
very
be too
sluggish.
much for your body to actually even handle.
Yeah, break
So,
down.
or, you want to feel good and like
Yeah.
right on.
It's wild. So let me ask you this, and this isn't even on my questionnaire here. What do you think about the whole like vegan vegetarian thing compared to the protein meats and stuff? What do you, I'm not gonna say what you recommend, because that's kind of like a shot in the
That's
foot
it. Yeah. I
question.
was like, that's
Don't
not
even
it.
go there.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about that? Because again, I feel everyone needs their own, and you can get
Yeah.
protein from fruits and vegetables too.
Yeah, yeah. So, let's say the whole protein conversation, like I think that there's definitely a need for protein for sure.
Right.
I think where the leanings in probably over the past 10 years of kind of the over protein or the over meat can be a little
Mhm.
bit too heavy handed. So like that's why I'm like, I don't mind someone having meat, but like you do have to be thoughtful of how much, and you have to be
Mhm.
thoughtful of like which kinds, whether it's lean, whether it's antibiotic and hormone free, like all of that
Yeah.
actually can really make a difference for people. And then on the flip side, like there's a lot of reasons why someone might be vegan or vegetarian. And it doesn't mean that you can't get in your protein needs. You just have to really think through it much more to guarantee like you're getting those needs met. So for someone, let's say, who has a lot of cholesterol issues, I'm actually going to lean a little more plant forward than I am going to
Absolutely.
be leaning more meat forward.
Right.
Um, doesn't exclude one or the other, but like it might be your leanings might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hope I answered what you were
Yeah.
trying to
No,
ask.
that's definitely where I was going with it. Because
Yeah,
everyone I feel like it's almost like a weird separation in the diet world now, where like everyone,
yeah,
you're, yeah, people are like, oh, protein, and they're like, no, you gotta go plant based, and you have all these new things coming out, and it's just all wild. And
mhm.
obviously, at the end of the day, moderation is key. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I
that's
think what gets lost sometimes with the protein part is like definitely protein's going to give you more satiety, so meaning that fuller part of it. If someone is working on muscle building, like it puts forth efforts towards muscle building if you're doing the work towards that physically. But I think what's, on the flip the side that's missed is if everything's leaning that way, then you're going to miss some of the micronutrients from plants that actually help in digesting and making that protein work.
absolutely.
So I think that like when sometimes, you know, people make a switch in how they're eating, I can tell you for that first month to 6 weeks, things will happen. It will be
Oh,
like, what? Oh my gosh. And I'm just like, okay, well, in 6 weeks, we really have to talk, because what I
yeah.
don't want is something to be really missing out or a detriment, because I will always think 5 years ahead for someone. So if
Yes.
they are, let's say something major has happened in that month or 6 weeks, but I also have to think in 5 years of like, oh, well, are they not getting things to actually build and protect their bones? So, like,
Yes.
in the future, are they going to have bone loss? And like, that is going to be a really difficult quality of life in the future. So
Yeah.
that's where I think, like, I know we all love like the immediacy for some things, but
Mhm.
there is some particular purposes or reasons why you might be, I don't know, thinking through or being like, let's be more well-rounded with this, or trying to utilize food in that
Yeah.
way.
And that's huge too, is, the calcium and bone loss is a huge thing nowadays. And I
Mhm.
think, my own opinion, I don't have any facts on this, so it's just my opinion, is that we eat, or it's being sold, so much processed food and so many over chemically induced foods, that we kind of forgot about going back to the earth and eating what's actually like, not everybody can grow their own garden, not everybody can hunt their own meats, but being able to go through, oh wow, that's so weird. All right, Facebook, I just got a weird thing. Facebook just updated, and all of a sudden we're now live on Facebook
Hey,
again.
Facebook.
So yeah, thank you. And actually, it's perfect timing, because we're about to go into our second segment. Because Anchor, although it's a great site, I love it. Sponsored by them and all that. Only lets me do half-hour segments, so I will stop it and then redo it. Will take about 5 seconds, but we're going to continue this conversation, because this is huge. I mean, the proteins and all that is really something that's needed. You know.
Yeah, I mean, uh, yeah, I can pause and then I can comment on calcium if you want me to, or I don't know if it's
We're all set. We're doing our second recording right now. It's that good.
fabulous.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
beautiful. Finally, technology works, right?
Yes, yes. Always the caveat.
Right.
So I think so in kind of calcium and the thought process, let's say with calcium,
Mhm.
gosh, there's so many things that go into that itself. Okay, and also
Yeah.
the other trace minerals that are going to be part of bone building, such as
Mm,
magnesium, such as phosphorus, such as zinc. All
yes.
of those well-rounded things need to be helped and broken down within your digestive tract. And then
Mhm.
also at the same time, that needs to be well-rounded within your what you're eating. And
Yeah.
so in part, I can say like, yes, when you're having something that's processed, and let's say something is even added to it or fortified, it's not as well-rounded as we would get it from like the source.
Right. Right.
Okay, so that's kind of one part, I think, of the picture too. The other part, what I see oftentimes as well is that, and just because I deal with this too, is the gut health part of
Mm.
this. So many people have such difficulty digestively, like whether that is like my food's not breaking down, I feel really sluggish, I feel bloated all the time. And probably my biggest kicker, what I hear the most, is that a lot of like heartburn or acid reflux. And so they're
Mm.
taking like a PPI or an antacid, let's say. I'm using all my like PPI is a proton pump inhibitor.
No, I'm right there too with you, and I'm geeking out and nerding about this, because I'm right there with you. Fortunately, a lot of our viewers are kind of in that first responder or military world, so they may
Ah,
understand. If they don't, well, open
wanted
a book,
to.
guys. Research
I
some
just,
nutrition.
I just wanted to be like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, I'm like
Yeah.
throwing
No, you're
things
good.
out here real quick. So, um,
But yeah,
so
that
so
PPI is huge.
so if you're taking that, you need that lowers stomach acid and lowers that effect. if you're eating something with calcium or taking a supplement, you actually need that acid to actually leach the calcium from its component to be able to be absorbed. So
Right.
it's kind of this really weird catch-22 of like all the pieces aren't working together. So but that's at least a trend that I also see too, is
Mhm.
just that kind of effect of utilizing something on a regular basis that makes it then hard to get what you need from food or from supplement if it's a calcium supplement.
Yeah, and it's I'm glad you actually brought that up in that way too, because a lot of people think, okay, I'm eating this is healthy for me, and then move on, but they kind of forget and break down those micronutrients. I'm telling you, like that is so huge,
Mhm,
and people forget about that side of the house. All of those micronutrients that are so important, like your B12s, like you said, your zincs and all that, and then how
mhm.
your body reacts to it and how the food is actually broken down. Whether it's like, okay, here's our little thing here, and we're eating it, and then okay, it goes through your system, but when it's in your system, this little thing has little channels it's going to open, whether it's vitamins, nutrients, proteins, and then how they actually get digested.
Mhm.
And we think, okay, I had a salad today. It was healthy, but you had, you know, a quarter of a gallon of Russian dressing with deep fried chicken on top, crispy chicken. Yes, you had
Yeah.
some leafy greens, great, but what you just put into your system isn't actually going to help you at all. It might make you sluggish, but again, each person is different. But
Yeah, yeah, but the food, like the combinations of food and kind of what things are put together, yeah, they can kind of like negate each other,
exactly.
let's say. And so that's why, like, utilizing food or utilizing something in particular, um, really can be helpful into supporting a certain trace mineral. Like if I think of anyone with like a thyroid issue, I'm usually thinking about selenium. And so like the first thing is I'll be like, okay, Brazil nuts, I want 3 of those a day. Like, just to kind of make that like all tangible in there, because I'm trying to really
Absolutely.
work on that support of that particular organ.
Yeah.
Let's say. So, I mean, I think that that's where sometimes this part, we can sit back and we can think like big picture. And like if I'm starting with someone, that's what I always
Mhm.
do is I'm kind of like, all right, let's map this out. Let's make sure our timing is okay.
Yep.
Let's make sure like what's going to make sense in that way. But also to that effect too, once we get like that kind of down pat a bit better, then you're wanting to walk in and be like, okay, this is like the nitty gritty. This
Yeah.
is like
Spearheading it.
also where this is like, you know,
Absolutely.
so
Getting
it's
into that real detailed, okay, let's go with 5 pine nuts today and tomorrow, 3 raisins. My friend Luke, like I was talking before, he was doing bodybuilding competitions and a lot of really having a cut weight and literally
Mhm.
I remember he came over when I was in the army. He visited me, and it was really cool because fortunately we were in the same state, so he was able to visit me. And he had this whole package of like, okay, I have to have literally like 4 raisins,
Yeah.
2 ounces of pork, and it got every 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it was very very detailed and specific. And he said he felt like crap at the time, but he knew what he had to do to get that body that he needed to for those competitions. He's still
Really
very strict
tough.
with it. Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
rigid, but now he's like, I'm personal training, I'm doing my thing, but I'm not trying to go down that road again. I've done it, been there. See you later. He goes, it just you feel so horrible afterwards. But
Yeah.
again, doing that's the extreme side. So for a normal
Yeah.
person, we're not going to eat, three pine nuts, 1 ounce of
No.
pork chop, one slice or something.
No,
But
and I have to say too that like, the other kind of part or the let's say the other leaf with this one too is the food relationship part and the mental health component with it. Because I do have a
yes,
lot of people that'll walk in of like, oh my gosh, I ate this or I didn't eat this, and like the guilt and the shame and the blame that goes along with it. that
Yeah.
no, like food is not an identification, or how you eat is not doesn't indicate your value. You're a person
Yes.
and you are valuable. Like
Yes,
period.
absolutely. And and you know what? We saw that. I saw that a lot in the military where people were very, you know, for instance, somebody like me, I'll just use myself, who once I got injured, I started packing on pounds because I couldn't have that activity, that cardio that I
Sure.
used to do. And I started going into a very deep slump because I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be performing here and I can't. So what value do I have left? I'm a soldier, I'm a,
I
piece of government property, and I'm letting myself down. Then it started going deeper. I'm letting my family down, my country down. And then that is really a huge factor. I'm really happy you brought that up, was the mental health with that too, because like you said, what you eat and who you are is not your identification. It's not who you are. It's just part of you. It's what you do to survive, and you eat and you drink and whatever you put in your body, it does have repercussions, good or bad, but
sure,
it's not who
sure.
you are. So anyone who feels that way, do not feel that way. Do not feel
Mm.
guilty about it or anything like that. And if one thing I learned, and I read a lot, and I read this book, Atomic Habits. If you get yourself better,
Sure.
1% better every single day, just 1%, just that small. Instead of having a soda, have one bottle of water. Instead of having,
Mhm.
a candy bar, have, I don't know, a bag of peanuts, just something weird like that.
Mhm.
But just that little bit really plays into huge effects. And it's funny you were smiling when I said
Mhm.
Atomic Habits. I'm sure,
James Clear.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. We this tight network of, I'd say, like some of the best industries in the world, some of the best people I've talked to, including you. We all have read like the same books, and it's just so amazing how that correlates with where that's a whole nother episode we can go down. Man, Atomic Habits, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like, huge stuff. But
Yeah.
it's crazy. So let me ask you this, and this is kind of a wild out there conversation. What do you feel, and just opinion, how do you feel about like the CBD industry and the THC industry coming into mainstream, and how do you feel about that being affected on health wise now? Because they're pushing that for meds and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I'm open to it. I think we're so in the learning process with it. Like we can be like, oh, okay, like, yep, this great thing happens, this supportive thing happens. I think long term, I kind of am like, oh, I'm interested to see what's going to happen long term.
Yeah,
But I'm not. I think it's something that can be useful for people.
yeah,
I just like I'm like, okay, supplements and nutrition and this, like, that's how I'll
yeah,
address things. So let's say I'm working with someone on like gut dysbiosis, which is microbiome that's just kind of like off. And so, my first go ahead with that usually isn't like a probiotic. Like I actually hardly ever do that, which sounds really weird. But I'm usually thinking like, okay, well, what component, like, do I need to use like an alicillin, or do I need to use an
yeah,
artemisium? And those are all like flowering herbs, or alicins
yeah,
from garlic. And so like those are specific for like for dysbiosis. So like
yeah,
you utilize these things that you're like, oh, okay, hey, like that's not mainstream in some way,
yeah.
but it's useful and helpful. So I think with the CBD part, like I think that there's definitely things that can be useful and helpful with it within the
Yeah,
space. And we're gonna learn more. I mean, we just are.
absolutely. And I totally agree. And it's funny because when I know in New York it was like this huge blow up, like, oh, they're allowing everyone to get pot cards now and all this. And I'm like, we've been having
Sure.
supplements for hundreds of years, let alone even just regular supplements you can get over the counter that are literally pretty much doing the same thing. Like you were saying, like those supplements,
Mhm.
like the garlic supplement and all that. Like we've been capsulizing and taking these meds before everything else. But all it is for me, and this is my opinion, is how they can tax and sell it. They couldn't find
Sure.
a smarter
Right.
way to do it. Now they have, which is a
Sure.
good thing. I know myself, and this is why I wanted to ask before I said this. I'm an avid user of CBD because it got me off of my 45 meds. It helped reduce a lot of
Yeah,
my joint pains and stuff like that. But I feel at the same, and I'm all about it. But at the same time, I also feel me getting up off my butt every day and going outside,
yeah,
doing 30 minutes of cardio or 30 minutes of activity minimum, you know, going out and doing things and not sitting around, saying, woe is me, I need more meds. No, that's not going to solve anything. Again, it's that whole triad of health. And
absolutely.
I'm a huge pusher for the old ways, I guess, the old medicines of and if I'm wrong, correct me, like garlic is super heart healthy, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Obviously in moderation too.
yeah, yeah. So garlic can be pretty heart healthy. A couple of reasons why. Like one, it does help with the um, gut microbiome and dysbiosis
Mhm.
part. So why I mentioned that is that actually your microbiome and your gut lining is the first point of just immune barrier. So
Mhm.
one, your body has to do a lot with that. But two, there's been relationship with actually disease like cardiovascular disease and
Mhm.
certain like bacteria that is in your
Absolutely.
gut. So that's one part of it. The other part is it's also anti-inflammatory too, as well.
Mhm.
So without that inflammation, that's going to be much more helpful,
Yeah.
particularly with also the cardiovascular system. And then probably last thing is that it helps with blood flow too.
Yeah.
So I
And
mean,
that's huge. Blood flow is huge.
all of those things. So I
And it
think
all
that, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's all like an adjunct.
Mhm.
It's like you can't just approach things and be like, okay, this is the one part of the
The one
picture we're
side.
going to look at,
Yes.
because absolutely it's like, okay, this may help, right? This may like be part of it. But then we also want to layer in this part and this part
Yeah.
too, because that's all in the soup.
Yeah.
It's all in there.
It's It's so true. I mean, when I got out of the army, was kind of bouncing a little bit. Finally came, I'll say, my home here, up in beautiful Broome, New York, Middleburg, New York. My doctor, I got a doctor, and she said, "Yeah, let's take a look at your knee. Let's figure out what's going on." I did not go to the VA because in Syracuse, New York, in the VA, I felt like I was just a number, kind of like a lot of vets do. So I finally get to an actual doctor. They tell me, "Yep, we need to get surgery done on your knee. I'm going to send you up to a specialist, orthopedics." Within 2 weeks, got surgery done to my knee. Over the last year of just staying active, um, and mentally too, it just was so much better. I being active, you know, eating, and I cook a lot with lemon, with garlic. I'm sure it's an Italian thing too, but like those things, those Mediterranean kind of diets, as we say, or how you eat, actually really
Mhm.
makes a big difference on how you live and how you feel, mentally, emotionally, because there is a difference, which most people don't think, but there is a difference mentally,
Mhm.
emotionally, and spiritually. You just feel better and you want to do better things and you want to do better things for other people. And, you know, on earlier episodes, we talk about just holding a door for somebody and saying thank you, can really change somebody's day. And it all comes down to the basic, simple things. Like, again, we said sleep, eating correctly, and all sort of things. Um,
Mhm.
so before we go, I know you're huge with the bariatric stuff and the gut health. So let's dive into that because that really, I feel, is one of the most common things. I worked for a cardiologist for a while, medical assistant, EMT, all this fun stuff, nationally certified here and there. When you kind of like when you get that degree or that cert, you have to have like 14 others just attached to it. Um,
Sure, sure.
and gut health is so important. I saw so many patients with so many heart and gut health meds or tell-alls of, hey, it directly correlates with it. So talk to us a little bit about gut health and why it's important, and just educate us. I mean, I'm having a great time. So,
Good. I'm glad. I'm not boring
oh
anyone.
no,
I'm hoping for that. So, all right, gut health. So I think, let's say like symptom wise, right? If someone's
yep,
gut health is off, you're usually not going to the bathroom. You should
hmm,
poop once a day at least. One to
yep,
three times is usually like on average. Okay. So I always like frame of reference for anyone if they
absolutely,
are not sure. And then I'm also looking at like acid reflux, bloating, cramping. What's going on there? Like, do you feel
Mhm.
sluggish? Like when you eat food, does it really sit for a really long time?
Mhm.
All of those things kind of indicate of what's going on with someone's gut health. Why it's so important is one, your gut health is part of your immune barrier. So when that is just honestly overworked and tired, your immune system is going to go down. So that's one part of it. The
And
other
that's like
part,
all going down the hill
it
too.
does. It does. The
Yeah.
other part, like just to throw in like different little things, is like we have certain bacterias that are actually like connected, and you can see them connected to certain health conditions.
Mhm.
For example, Akkermansia is one that we can see when that's off, that actually will contribute to insulin resistance. So
Mm.
someone's, insulin, or let's say like prediabetes or diabetes, may worsen or not improve with their medication because that particular gut bug is off.
Yeah.
And just to give a really like shining example of like why should we care about this? Like, why should we even think about it? The other part that I also really think is fascinating too is 92% of serotonin. So serotonin is your
Mhm.
happy hormone. 92% is made by your gut microbiome.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. That's so
So
huge.
so like when, if we're thinking through and we have a gut brain axis. So if we think of like neurotransmitters like dopamine, epinephrine,
Mhm.
norepinephrine, that's all of that like regulation of like, am I happy? Am I sad? Do I like all of that regulation? So that all works together because our gut actually influences those neurotransmitters made in the brain as
Yes.
well.
That loop.
So like anxiety, depression, that actually also can really highly be affected by someone's gut microbiome.
Yeah.
So, from a digestive standpoint, like if things aren't working right in there, you're not going to break down food properly. You're not going to get those nutrients, especially those micronutrients.
And those
And
drops in your normal levels.
and then all of your other things that can happen within that just one kind of area of the body. So that's why it's so important and why I'm so passionate about it, because there's so many links to it.
Yes.
So and it's just like people will go like, gosh, something's off, or I don't feel well, and I've had every test run and everything's normal, and I'm always
And
like,
then yeah.
great that there's no big, huge issue. Okay, great. But I never want to invalidate like someone feeling within their own body. You are the best person to know what's going on in there.
Yeah.
So if it's off, then I'm like, all right, like let's look closer at this and let's look at like the gray area of like you're not feeling so like something's off.
Yeah.
So okay.
And what was that documentary? I can't remember the guy's name now with the Super Size Me when he ate McDonald's for like a
Oh,
year straight. Michael something, I think it was.
It will come to me and I
Uh,
probably will be like, this. I
okay.
know exactly who you're talking
Yeah.
about, but the name is
And he
throwing
was
me.
slamming down burgers left and right, the big size drinks and all. And it was just a social experiment of that was how much it really affected him over that time period. Like we
Mhm.
said, that 1% every day, you do a little positive change for your body. 1% every day really makes a difference. But yeah, if you're slamming down burgers and sucking down
Mhm.
soft drinks, especially the dark soft drinks, and that's a whole nother episode. But like the Pepsis and Cokes, that will Dr. Peppers, that will oh again, I'm guilty for the monsters. I can admit that. That's my downfall. And they're horrible. They're horrible. But yeah, it's just wild to see like how what you actually put in really does make a difference in your body. It's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. And that's why, that's why it's like I can talk through it and explain it and all that's good stuff, but like, why should we care about it at all in the
Yeah.
first place? And I'm like, oh, the linkings to all of the other things are
And it
so
does.
incredible.
And it links to every part, every system in your body and every
It does.
organ. It really does. It's crazy to see how it all links right through.
Hmm. Yeah.
Wild.
So I think for me, that's why, and just let's say in practice and people that I work with, my clients, are awesome, but most people will come to me, and that's kind of like the complaint, or at least what I get is usually like, yep, I've been dealing with this forever and I don't feel so well. And I don't, I just don't feel so well. And there's nothing major going wrong. So everything's comes back, quote unquote, normal, which
General malaise.
great. We got to rule that out. Like there's nothing major going on. I'm always glad for that. We don't want a major thing. But then I'm like, okay, let's dive in. Let's test your microbiome. Let's take a look at it. Let's do all of those things so that we can actually get to the bottom of why this is off. And there's great things that we know and can do now to actually kind of go into that like gray area of that part. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. As we wrap this up, Katie, please tell everyone where they can find you, your website. I believe I have it here on my banner as well, but there we go.
Yeah, perfect.
But yeah, where can people get in touch with you and contact with you so that they can start getting themselves straightened out?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I love the banner. That is great. That is my website. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. On there, you can contact me directly, or if you're interested in working with me or someone like me too, I have my calendar on there. You can sign up for just a complimentary meet and greet call. We can just talk through everything, and I can give some thoughts and insight, at least of like next direction. And so that's why I'm always like, that sometimes is really, really helpful for people too. But absolutely, if you are just like, hey, I'm kind of wondering about this, I don't know what exactly it's related to, or hey, I just want to get some better direction that is going to really come from like a whole person and just like really looking through all of the different things, then reach out. I'm happy to help.
Definitely. And Kate, thank you so much for being on. It means a lot to me personally. And thank you for joining us on this mini series, because it's huge insight and huge importance on not only alternative medicine, but traditional medicine too, is that diet side, the nutrition side and all that. So thank you again for having us, having come on and everything. It really means a lot. And, we loved it. Thank you. And we'll definitely have you on again. So it's going to be fun. We'll get into some other fun stuff. So.
Oh, always here for it. Always here for it. I'm so glad everyone was able to join. And thanks so much for having me, Tony.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie, again. And as we say here at Triggered, stay triggered.